One of the phrases that comes to mind so often when I think about modern media is, wow, we didn't realise how good we had it back then. Whether it was Terminator movies that didn't look like a bunch of angry, confused inmates from the local old folks home had escaped and gone on a gun-fueled rampage, or Star Trek shows that were more than a series of hysterical checkboxes, crying and hugging each other while talking about their feelings, or in this case, the Marvel TV universe on Netflix that premiered 10 years ago. A neat little interconnected group of shows about low-level heroes and villains set loosely within the framework of the MCU without being completely handcuffed to the ludicrously overblown storylines it was devolving into. In a franchise that was increasingly focused on sky beams and multiversal disasters and galaxy-hopping space aliens, these shows were about street thugs, gangsters and crime lords fighting for control of New York City. They were dark, gritty, violent and mature, and they made for a neat little counterpoint to all the bright colours and snarky humour of the mainline MCU. Yeah, they weren't all winners by any stretch. Luke Cage was pretty forgettable, and I don't think many people are going to look back fondly on Iron Fist, but at its best, it delivered some of the greatest comic book TV shows we've ever gotten. And king of this particular mountain had to be Daredevil, the story of Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer advocating for the downtrodden people of Hell's Kitchen by day, and a masked vigilante dispensing his own brutal brand of justice by night. It was great stuff, mixing complex, thought-provoking storylines with a superb cast of characters, wonderfully violent fight scenes, and played to perfection by Charlie Cox, who might as well have been born to play the character. Sorry, Ben, but hey, that Batman gig worked out okay, right?
I agree.
Truly, we did not appreciate how good we had it. Well, until the dark times came in the shape of Disney Plus, and the entire Marvel lineup on Netflix was cancelled to make way for something different.
He almost tasted that. Num 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 num, eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1. You know I'm the hottest shooter.
Honestly, I can't think of a bigger downgrade in all of entertainment. Oh wait, yes I can. Anyway, ever since then, the question everyone's been asking is, what is to be done with Daredevil? Will he get another series? Is Charlie Cox staying in the role, or are they going to recast? Well, Marvel have teased us with little cameos here and there over the years, but honestly, what we've seen has been more depressing than exciting. Like, did we really need to see him do the walk of shame after banging She-Hulk?
Look how they mask with my boy.
Or barely holding his own in a fight against a tubby, deaf, one-legged woman who couldn't act if her life depended on it. Then came the announcement we'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating. Daredevil was finally returning to the MCU in his own brand new show, Daredevil Born Again. Great news, right?
Wrong.
Well, not really, because pretty soon news began leaking that the show was in deep trouble, with writing and production problems causing a series of delays as they tried to get the show back on track. Finally, after 6 entire episodes had been filmed, Marvel decided it just wasn't working, pulled the plug entirely and scrapped the whole thing, which depending on your outlook was either the ballsiest act of self-awareness in their entire history, or a brutal admission that they didn't have a fucking clue what they were doing with this character. It's worth remembering at this point that this is the same studio who thought She-Hulk, Echo, Secret Invasion and Agatha All Along were good enough to get the green light. God only knows how bad this version of Daredevil must have been for them to pull the plug on it. Anyway, with all these problems, it was beginning to look doubtful whether we'd ever get to see Matt Murdock again, and even if we did, perhaps we'd wish we hadn't. But then something kinda crazy happened. In a shocking display of common sense, Marvel hired the lead writer for Netflix's Punisher series to be the showrunner, brought in a bunch of additional writers who actually knew what they were doing, and got back to work. Which brings us at last to the trailer for Daredevil Born Again, which came out just a couple of days ago. And wow, I can't believe I'm saying this about a Marvel TV show, but this actually looks pretty good.
Ha! Gay!
It's got a nice, dark, serious tone with the organ music hinting at Murdock's Catholic faith, and that alone is pretty surprising for a tediously hyper-progressive company like Disney. I say, that whole religious thing's a bit problematic, isn't it? There's a decent bit of violence and fight scenes that look like they have actual weight behind them instead of the video game cutscenes we've been force-fed for years. Echo made a kind of half-hearted move in that direction, trying for a more grounded and gritty approach to fight scenes, but never quite having the balls to commit commit to it, but Born Again seems to have actually made good on this potential. Give me more snapped bones, please. There's a nice appearance from the Punisher, who looks just as angry and unhinged as ever. John Bernthal's notoriously protective of this character, and he's on record as saying he'd only consider coming back if the script was good enough to justify it. So, well, here's hoping he wasn't lying. But the centerpiece of the trailer is the tense confrontation between Murdoch and Kingpin that hints at their old rivalry being rekindled again. It's actually kinda crazy to think it's been 10 years since these guys first went head to head, and yeah, the actors have definitely aged a bit since then, but I think that makes for some interesting story possibilities if it's carried through into the show. Kingpin's now the mayor of New York, and Murdoch's implied to have left his vigilante life behind. But how long will that really last? They're now older men that might have moved on in life but have never been quite able to let go of their pasts, and I think there's a lot you can do with that. But please, for the love of God, leave that fucking plank of wood Echo out of this one, and just let Daredevil do what Daredevil does best. Stop trying to make that character happen. She's not going to happen. Now, I know that trailers by their very nature are designed to sell you something that might not even exist in reality, and there's still a whole lot of ways that Marvel could fuck this one up, but at the very least, it's kindled a tiny spark of hope in the cold embers of my blackened Scottish hearts. I hope that Daredevil might finally get the comeback he absolutely deserves. I hope that Marvel might finally see the potential in making mature TV shows for adult audiences instead of churning out more generic slop that appeals to no one. I hope that the MCU can start telling half-decent stories again. You've got my attention, Marvel. Just try not to fuck it up. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now!